your turn. How are you, buddy, today? What's going on? Joseph.
How you doing, Chris? Quick thoughts on the game last night.
Yep.
One, not quite fair to say Gonzaga lost because they're not good from a tough conference. I think if that were the case, they would have been exposed a lot earlier in the tournament. You don't win 5 games, 4 by double digits, unless you have a good program.
Well, hold on now. Let's analyze that for a second. Let's forget the first
Sure.
game. All right, beating Norfolk State, that doesn't count. Let's forget that. Oklahoma came into the tournament on a bad note. They finished about 7th place in their league in the Big 12. So, okay, they won, but they were not the best team. They were the 7th place team in the Big 12. They beat Creighton in the next round, and Creighton was a team that if you saw the Big East final against Georgetown, it's amazing they even won a game or two in the NCAA. They were so bad against the Hoyas, who then lost by 50 to Colorado. So that's that game. Now, USC, they did a hell of a job there. Give them credit. They did a hell of a job against USC. That was a good win. USC had played really well. They buried USC, but then they went to the wire to beat UCLA, that was an 11th seed and a play-in team that did nothing, and they got blown out by Baylor. Now, it's not like they went through 5 1 seeds to get to a championship game, to be fair. They didn't do that.
Agreed. The difference in the game last night, 3. One you mentioned was the rebounding. The other 2 were perimeter defense by Baylor. Gonzaga got no easy looks from the outside, why they couldn't hit the 3-pointers because they weren't getting any easy looks. And the third was the bench. Baylor was just a deeper team and overall the better team. You like to see a championship game that's exciting, but in some ways Baylor winning, kind of like Villanova a couple years ago. It's nice when a team goes through this whole tournament and they dominate everyone and leave no doubt they were the best team. The last point I'll make, the game that this reminded me of last night was the Super Bowl in the Meadowlands with Seattle and Denver, where you had a lot of hype coming in, 2 best teams all year. With their defense, Seattle grabbed control of that game in the first 10 seconds and never let it go. They just strangled Denver with their defense. And that's what this game reminded me of last night. 3 minutes into that game, I was watching it, and I said, this game's over. Gonzaga just had no answers. And whether it was because they were tired or because Baylor could have done that to them anytime they played them, it was just last night the better team won. Gonzaga belonged there, but they were second best last night, and not by a little bit. You got to take your hat off to Baylor. They were the best team, not just last night, the whole tournament. They answered every question, and absolutely the best team. And congratulations, Gonzaga will be back. But no doubt last night you have not only a deserving champion, but a memorable champion. I mean, they won this pretty convincingly.
Excellent point, Joe. Everything you said there, I basically agree with. Good comparison with Denver and Seattle. Good call. I don't know. Listen, they barely beat UCLA. They got blown out last night. I mean, outside of the USC win, give me a game this year. Or a game since January. I know they won a couple games in the they beat Iowa, they beat West Virginia. Remember, they beat West Virginia in the regular year. West Virginia lost to Syracuse in the second round. All right, that's the first thing. Then they also beat Iowa this year, and Iowa got buried by Oregon in the second round, and the Big Ten stunk. So, outside of USC here, who they manhandled, give me the game here this year that you sat there and said, wow, this team is really something else. Everybody swore up and down by them. Oklahoma, they limped into they couldn't beat Oklahoma State. They limped into the tournament. Limped. You got to be fair. So did Creighton. Creighton should have lost in the first round of Santa Barbara, for crying out loud. So if you look at it from that perspective, I know it's looking at it after the fact and not before the fact, and let's also remember that I thought Gonzaga was going to win last night. But if you look at now the big picture of their season, forget the league. The league means nothing. They had second best team in the league, lost in the first round of the tournament easy to UCLA. That's BYU. They had no other teams in the tournament from their league. They got destroyed last night. UCLA is lucky they got into the tournament, and they lost to them, albeit great, and UCLA was a good team at the end, but still they did lose to them. Creighton stunk to Georgetown in the Big East final. They should have lost in the first round to Santa Barbara, and they got a little break in the second round because there was an upset, and they didn't play Virginia. They played Ohio. So if you go back and look at this and think about this specifically, they beat USC. We'll give them that. But I'll tell you, you can make the argument. That is, I'd say you got to disparage the year a little bit. I don't care what anybody says. I know people are going to disagree. 31-0, blah, blah. I don't want to hear it. 20 of the wins came in that league. 20 of the wins came in that league. That league stinks. I don't hear about that league. That league stinks. That means nothing, that league. Nothing. Here's Chad in California. He's on Mad Dog Unleashed. Chad, good afternoon. Your turn. How are you today, pal? What do you have? Chad?
Doing good. Doing good. How you doing, doggy?
Fine, Chad. What's up?
Not much. Just a little bit on last night's game, and I'm a Tar Heel fan, so, I don't have a dog in the fight. But I followed a lot of Gonzaga, a lot of Baylor, and a lot of Michigan this year just for, betting reasons, watching those teams kind of trounce on everybody. And you look at Gonzaga from their perspective, and one thing that worried me, but I had my money on them last night, so obviously it didn't worry me enough, was just their lack of depth. And I don't think that they were gassed by any means from the UCLA game. I'm not going to use fatigue as a factor, but that early foul trouble with Suggs and then Timmy, they don't really have anywhere else to go when they get into that situation. And then obviously the lack of athleticism in the WCC. I mean, it's not like these other conferences athletically. And you look at Baylor, who I've loved watching all season. They're so up and down, and I just thought Gonzaga was the more consistent team throughout the season. That's why I backed them last night. But when Baylor plays how they played last night, and what I mean by that is when their three guards, who are all fantastic, are all knocking down their shots, they defend with the same energy that they play offense. You don't get that with a lot of guys, especially a lot of star kids in college. They kind of take that break on the defensive side of the ball. Not Baylor. Baylor's on the floor, with 2 minutes left in the game, up 20. They're still diving for loose balls. They bring that energy, that kind of dog mentality. They got a big man in Vital, who is a little guy, but he plays like he's 7'3". I mean, he has the heart of a lion out there.
Yes, he is.
And when you have a team like that and you smack Gonzaga in the mouth, something that hasn't happened to them all season, they were just shell-shocked, and they weren't able to get over that, and Baylor just kept it on them. And when you're a basketball player on the floor and you're just getting hounded on the offensive end and on defense with a hand in the face, and they're still making a jumper on you, you kind of just get mentally defeated. And I think Baylor just beat them up mentally last night, and then they were just playing on all cylinders. And you got to credit Coach Drew, who's turned that program around, who had a similar team with Perry Jones and Quincy Acey, and he couldn't get it done. And this time they get it done. So I credit Baylor a lot. I don't really want to, use excuses of why Gonzaga didn't compete. I think we should just, credit Baylor.
Well, here's the thing. Chad, what you said is a lot of truth to that. Good call. Here is your problem, though, if you want to give all the credit to Baylor, all right? The game was 11-1, 13-4, 17-4, 29-10. Right? They were not ready to play Gonzaga. Simple. They were not ready to go. And they were out of the game right away. That game was over. 11-1, the game was over. Think about it. When you think about it after you watch that, the game was over. They were not ready to go. They were not ready to play in that game. And Baylor was. Now, part of it might be the UCLA finish. Took a lot out of them. I'll grant you. I'll give you that. But whatever they did as a coaching staff between Saturday night and 11 or 11:30 and last night at 9:20, they better revisit, because their team that they coach was just not prepared to play in that game. They were not prepared. They were not ready to go. They were just out of it. I mean, whatever it might, step slow. They took Baylor lightly. Whatever it might be, they were just not ready to play a championship game level of basketball. Simple. And, it's not that Baylor wore them out. It's not that Baylor physically pounded them. No, that's part of it. But the problem with that game, if you want to analyze it from Baylor having a better bench and all that nonsense, if you want to analyze the game, the bench didn't play in the first 10 minutes, all right? First 7 minutes. The game was 11-1, 17-4, 29-10. Explain. We take a timeout. We continue. We're Mad Dog Unleashed.